What would the rich do if they owned your farm?
When I say rich, I don't mean flashy. I'm talking about business owners, people who think in systems and not just, seasons or year to year. So let's talk about how somebody like that would run a farm or ranch. Now, the first thing they would do is they would get control or at least knowledge of the current cash flow. Now, this separates emotion from, the actual numbers. The facts are facts. The numbers don't lie. Just because you want to do something doesn't mean the numbers are going to change. You can see exactly what's happening when you do monthly cash flows. This is how you know your fixed costs, your variable cost, where you're spending too much extra money, where there's really inefficiencies or waste. You cannot build wealth with a spreadsheet that you look at once a year. Next is they're going to build a balance sheet, but not a bank one. You see, when a bank looks at a balance sheet, a lot of it has to do with looking at your collateral and comparing that to your liabilities and just structuring them in different time frames. Your current, your intermediate, and your long term. Sometimes you look at the assets that the bank controls currently, other lenders control, and you see where there might be room where you can either borrow more money or just how you're getting things paid off. This is what we're going to do different. We're going to look at liquidity. Liquidity really matters more than net worth in a bad year. Most farmers and ranchers are land rich and cash poor, and most rich operators are going to value flexibility, the optionality, and the ability to access cash without permission, aka asking the banker for more money. Sound familiar? And this is exactly where the wealthy play this game of business differently. So we just said it. Every operation needs capital, cash, not only because it's nice and convenient, but because it helps in bad years. It's fast when good opportunities arise. You might have been there, a heck of a deal on a skid loader. You needed a skid loader. You've been waiting for it. And then only to find out you have to go to your bank and you have to wait a week before they'll get it through loan committee or approval, or maybe you see an awesome opportunity that you can, maybe purchase a little chunk of a neighboring lot of land. It'll tie right into your pasture, only for the bank to tell you it's not your year. The sad truth is most farms and ranches this day and age only have one source where they can get this capital, and that's their operating line. And that is dependent on interest rates, banks tightening or loosening control, collateral that could be valued higher or lower from year to year. Let me hit you with some tough love. If your only source of capital is your bank, then you don't actually have control of your operation. So how are the wealthy going to store this capital differently? They store their capital in a place that it's safe, it grows steadily, it's protected, it is liquid so they can access it quickly when good opportunities arise. They can borrow against it, use it as collateral so it's working in their favor, and it's growing all while they use it. This is why wealthy families use long-term contracts with insurance companies, not for death benefit, but for control and access. You're not withdrawing, you're not taking on more collateral against your assets. Your capital is staying secure and growing, and you repay your self-interest instead of the bank. So let's compare that to your operating line at the bank. The bank sets the rules, they can change the rates, and the interest is going out of your operation, and you're losing that capital. So what does it look like when you have access to this extra capital? Well, let me ask you a couple questions. If you have cattle, has there ever been a point where there was a cattle sale coming up, or maybe a bull sale, or maybe you were just watching a sale and there was a very good deal? Maybe it was 10 head of cattle were bringing, $500-800 even lower than market price, and you just wished you had talked to your banker and got it approved ahead of that sale so that you could pull the trigger. Or maybe it was a bad year and you needed some extra cash and you just regretted having to go to the bank and ask for a increase in the line of credit just to get you to the next year. That's exactly what this extra capital is for. It's for you to use when you need it. And don't get me wrong, the goal is not to avoid banks. Heck, I work at one currently. But it's rather to avoid being trapped by the bank.
I'm so convinced of this, I'm dedicating an entire section of my channel to this very topic.
And so when I piece this all together, it really comes down to a few things. Understanding and really cranking down on your cash flow, restructuring your balance sheet to really see where you're at, especially if there is a downturn. You're really seeing how risk adverse your operation is, and access to your capital, especially when you need it. So if the rich were to take over your farm, they wouldn't necessarily be after trying to buy and get more cows. They might just be trying to implement a system that you can do today, something you can start today. And it might take time, but why not make your operation stronger? I mean, heck, we've seen it all over. What happens when an operation can't weather a bad year or a bank tightens control? We've seen it in the 80s. Many times the operation is forced to sell out. You know, the kids can't step in and purchase that land because they don't have the money to afford it. Who is the highest bidder? We all know who it is. It's the investors, the people who are buying up all the farmland. And they're plowing over all the acreages. It's destroying the small town communities. I've seen it firsthand. And it's actually one of the big motivators for making this video. It's even one of the biggest motivators for why I started the Agri Summit community. A community where we can help each other. We can learn topics like this. I make courses on LRP, futures options, things that I've learned in my industry. There's other people making content in there on topics that they know about. And anybody in the community can share and post things that they're doing, they're seeing, what has worked for them in the past, what they want to try in the future, and see if somebody else has made that work for their operation. Because when you have collective information and you come together for one collective goal of helping bring back the family operations in our country, then you really have an advantage. You really have a next level operation, because you're doing it with information not only from your own experiences, but from hundreds of others as well. If we want our family farms and ranches to be around for the next 50 years, for our kids to be able to operate these systems, then we have to stop running the operation like we're just hoping for next year to be a good year.